For much of baby boomer pastors, one of the common questions that they would ask one another and to the older generation before them, what I call the builders, one of the questions that they would ask each other is, "What are you running?" Well, that had nothing to do with their speed in a half marathon or a 3K or 5K. Had nothing to do with how well fine tuned their automobiles are. Well, what are you running had to do with your attendance. And so one of the measures of success, I say that with a bit of shame, is what's the attendance of your church? What's the worship attendance of your church? And for years and years and years, it's just very common that it was almost a competitive factor. Pastors would love to talk about the size of their church. What are you running? And for many in the baby boomers and the builders, it became kind of just the badge of success. The larger the church, the better. Things are changing now. And this pastoral competition is decreasing. That's a good thing. And when you look at the previous generations, Gen X, and you look at the millennials and then the upcoming Gen Z, we're seeing that pastors are not competing with each other in the sense like they were. And that is very good for the church. That's very good for the kingdom. We want to thank you for being a part of this podcast. The Church Answers podcast is sponsored by Belay Solutions, and they provide incredible people to be your assistant virtually. They continue to do all of the back end work. They hire, they take care of all of the issues that may arise, and they just let this person help you and your organization. So when it is said and done, see Belay. And not only see Belay, but look at their download. 25 tasks a pastor can delegate to an assistant. Go to belaysolutions.com/Thom Rainer. Okay, this is a good thing. Pastoral competition is decreasing. And it's really reflected in that the size of a pastor's church is not indicative of the worth of a pastor. Frankly, it's not indicative of the worth of the church. And it's been sad that has been the case for a season. Now, I know churches should be reaching people with the gospel. I know that churches should seek to grow. But every context is different. Every leader is different. All demographics are different. And for that to be the point of comparison where pastors are competing with one another just to talk about what are you running, that's just not good. Let's just look at why pastoral competition is decreasing and just get to the essence of it. Reason number one is silly and unbiblical. To just talk about how large my church is, and that's going to be an indication of how much better I am, is unbiblical, and it's just downright silly. Different pastors and different churches are called to come together for different reasons. And if pastors start competing against one another, we have a situation where the kingdom of God is not helped, the community is not helped, and basically you are not doing what you are called to do if you're more concerned about the other pastor. I love the fact that pastoral competition is decreasing. As I've indicated again, the biggest church is no longer the measure of success. Hear me well. This is not a mega church bashing podcast. This is not a large church bashing podcast. At Church Answers, we have mega church pastors who are part of our membership. We have large church pastors who are part of our membership, as well as mid-size and small and very small. And I love all of these pastors. I love what they do. I love their hearts. And I don't see one as better just because of the size of their church. That is no longer the biggest measure of success. In fact, I don't even think the word success is a good word to use in terms of pastoral ministry. I would simply say faithfulness to what God has called them to do. You can be a pastor of a 2,000, 3,000 attendance church. You can be a pastor of a 300 church or a 30 attendance church. And more is holding up the same esteem. And now pastors no longer feel like that is their measure of success and they don't have to compete with one another. That is a good thing. A third reason that pastoral competition is decreasing, there's a healthy movement going along of pastors working together. Many pastors don't see themselves just as the pastor of their church. They consider themselves one of the pastors of the community. And if they consider themselves one of the pastors of the community, that means they're other pastors of the community. And so these pastors will often come together to do things for the community in cooperation with one another instead of competition. We are seeing more and more of this. And now, what happened for many years, it was more common for the mainline churches to come together to help the community than evangelical churches. Now we're seeing more and more evangelical churches where pastors are working together. It's a healthy movement of churches and leaders working together. A fourth reason, we're realizing we can't go alone anymore. It's kind of related to number 3, but it's broader than number 3. We, the churches, we, referring to the pastors who might be listening or watching this podcast, we cannot go it alone. We live in a culture that has gone from being positive toward Christianity to being neutral toward Christianity to more and more being adversarial toward Christianity. And we're living in a place where we have to, yes, as we previously said, work together, but we also have to realize that we cannot do this alone. We certainly have been called to an individual church and to be a shepherd if you are a pastor of those churches, but you have not been called to reach your community by yourself. So one of the great things that we're seeing these days is that pastoral competition is decreasing. Why? It's unbiblical to have pastoral competition. Why? Because the size of your church is no longer the measure of your success, or even better, your worth. Why? We're seeing a healthy movement of churches working together. Why? We're realizing more and more in this adversarial post-Christian culture that we cannot go it alone. We do have a lot of challenges in the church in the United States and in churches around the world. I get it. But one of the healthier signs is that we're realizing we're all the people of God, those who are firm believers in Jesus Christ and salvation alone by Christ. We're realizing that. And we can no longer just think that we're on this isolated island of our own congregation or even our own denomination. It is a great thing to see pastors working together. It is a great thing to see that pastoral competition is decreasing. It is a great thing because we probably will see some incredible fruit come from this as we see churches reach their communities and make a difference together, not just by themselves. Well, thank you again for watching. Thank you again for listening. Watching's on YouTube, listening's on your favorite podcasting app, or many of you listen to it directly from our site at churchanswers.com. So if your place, wherever you're listening and watching, can give a rating, a review, a subscription, please do so. And please let the world know about the Church Answers podcast. It's a rapidly growing podcast. It is a blessing to me, and I hope it is a blessing to you. Once again, we are sponsored by Belay Solutions. And once again, Belay has provided a download called 25 Tasks a Pastor Can Delegate to an Assistant. See that download in the show notes, or go to belaysolutions.com/Thom Rainer and you can look at the link in the show notes. All right. As always, remember that we drop 3 podcasts a week at the same time, and we've got some more podcasts for you to be listening to. So go over, and if you haven't listened or watched some of them, go over and catch up as well. See you in the next podcast. Thank you as always for being a part of the Church Answers podcast. Hey, folks, this is a PS to our podcast. We got some exciting stuff that we want to offer you absolutely for free. Sam, when you think about predictive factors in a church's growth, if you take out demographics, what are some things that come to mind? Just 2. I mean, don't give me a list of 10. Just 2 or 3 things that come to mind on predictive growth of a church.
Well, evangelism and whether the church is doing it or not.
Bingo.
And then I will add, is it an ongoing evangelism emphasis?
Double bingo. Well. And maybe something about leadership and their commitment to that. So all of the above.
Evangelistic churches have evangelistic pastors. Is the staff, is the lead pastor doing the work themselves?
We have a free download for you, and it's actually a sheet that you can self-score. You answer 20 questions, anywhere from strongly disagree to strongly agree. and we come back and we predict what your growth rate is going to be for the next year in worship attendance. It's not a perfect tool, but it's a good tool. There's a link to that for the attendance predictor. Look in the show notes. You'll absolutely love it. That's cool. We'll see you soon.